before we actually dive into it, how's the market here in Springfield?
It's good.
First time I've ever been to Springfield, Missouri.
Oh.
How's it going? How's it going? Average days on market, activity.
45 is our average days on market.
45, okay, that's about right.
What are we looking at activity? Our average sales price is 167.
Okay,
So that's kind of where we're at there.
okay.
We're starting to see things slow down a little bit.
Are you? Well, this time of the year is usual, but yeah.
Yeah, but they're still building.
Oh
Are
yeah.
they still building?
Expansion on the outsides of the city
Right.
limits. They're really starting to expand, so.
Okay, that might help. That's always a good indicator of people who are, much more on top of influx, et cetera, than even you guys know about. Yeah, okay, wonderful. All right. Well, how's our level of experience in the room? Do we have any brand new agents? Beautiful. Okay. How about 10 years plus? Okay, a lot of you guys. All right. Cool. All right, well, let's just get going. Anybody who straggles in can straggle in. My name is Michael McCall. I'm one of the national trainers with Realtor.com on 5th Street. It's my pleasure to be here. I thank you guys for showing up. We're going to be about 2 hours. We're going to cover all of the background of the company, and we're going to go into specifically developing your agent profile, which is going to really help to get you noticed out there. We're going to go into a live dashboard where I'll show you a few things, where they are, how to enhance your listings. Then we'll wrap it up today with 5th Street and how 5th Street can help secure all the leads that you work so hard to generate. I've been a real estate broker for 25 plus years. We're from Arizona. Our headquarters is in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's where I actually work out of. And I get to travel all around the country and show our tools to agents like yourselves. It's always a pleasure to be with Keller Williams, who's one of our best and most wonderful and cherished clients all across the country. I love to watch notice the differences in the training rooms between what's on the wall. And this is one of the best ones I've seen. The word bold, I'm going to refer to that a lot. I'm going to ask you and challenge you along the way to think outside the box when it comes to your personal marketing. Okay? All right. The first part of this is a little bit of background of Realtor.com, a couple of boring numbers. I'm going to get through them really fast. But the reason we do share these numbers is so that you guys are aware of how far into the market Realtor.com has penetrated. In other words, how much of the consuming public actually uses the product to search for real estate. We want you to know that, how far the consumer penetration has been, so that you then know all the people you need to reach that you're not reaching yet. Okay? And so both sides. We're looking at it from the consumer side, from the agent side, and how this can benefit you. Just a tiny little bit of the history of how the company was formed. About 22 years ago, NAR approached a company that at that time was called the Home Store and said, we want you to be the public face of NAR. We want you to develop a new website. We want you to develop agent tools, consumer tools, broker tools, etc. We're not going to have any day-to-day part in it, but we're going to monitor and approve everything you do. So that's also important for you guys to realize, right? Is that everything in the Advantage Pro, the Realtor.com section of this, is sanctioned and approved, by NAR. Along the way, that company, we changed the name of the company. The URL, Realtor.com, we don't own it. It's the property of NAR. We rent it from them. Realtor.org, of course, right? You'll know the difference there. Along the way, that company was changed to Home Store was changed to Realtor.com. We were acquired by a company called Move.com, and then a few years ago, Move was acquired by News Corp. We're now a Rupert Murdoch company, and again, the only reason that's relevant in any way, shape, or form is to know that we have some pretty good resources to fall back on, which we constantly use to improve the experience of the consumer and also the agent. Remember those years, 2006, 7, and 8, A little bit into, how badly did that recession hit here in this area?
Bad enough.
Was it bad enough?
Bad enough.
I know that in Arizona, where I was on the street just like you guys at that time, it was really bad. Every other home in the whole Phoenix Valley, the whole Sun Valley, was being foreclosed on. I had California investors that were really just committing suicide because they'd lost everything. So the whole point of even mentioning that is that, of course, during that time, I'm not sure exactly what happened here, but we had the advent of companies called Assist to Sell and Help You Sell. Did you have those here?
Oh, yeah.
The discount brokerages, the why would you want to pay all that commission? Kim, my glasses are dirty. Kim, when we can connect you directly with a buyer or directly with a seller. Right? Without telling them, of course, that they were foregoing the expert representation that an agent would provide. Or they were foregoing that carload of what kind of duties? It's the good F word in our business. Fiduciary duties, right? That this is what we were trained for. This is what we do. This is why you pay a commission. So that you don't get screwed. They weren't telling them that. A lot of them fell for it. A lot of them suffered for it. So part of our mission at Realtor.com is to provide the tools that fight against that kind of trend. Which I know in Arizona, we're getting, not the same companies, but now we have OfferPad. Do you have OfferPad here?
Not yet.
Well, you've heard of it, because I'm seeing some heads nod. And you know what I'm talking about, right? So our tools will help you keep yourself at the center of attention of your clients. So that's what we're after. So, that kind of 22-year period ended up with this suite of products that are all kind of designed to work seamlessly together. And what we're talking about today is Realtor.com and 5 Street. That all of these different products are either created by us or have been acquired by Realtor.com. Let's talk about marketing your listings. So in 2017, January to be specific, what we did is we took our website and we scrapped it. We rebuilt it using the HTML5 platform. Again, it's just, if you don't know what that is, it doesn't matter. It's a new programming language, which basically allowed for a total rebuild that allowed a faster consumer experience. It allowed us to get rid of our data centers in Phoenix. So all of our stuff is now on the cloud. Everything is faster, bigger, better pictures, and we are able to reach now a global audience with international marketing, all of your listings out to 70 plus different countries. It basically made the web and mobile experience much faster. So many clients were much happier with their experience. We have 62 million average, this is important now. This kind of refers back to how I introduced this. We have 62 million average unique users. So if Kim gets online and she makes some real estate inquiries on Realtor.com, and she goes back and she visits our site 15, 20, 30 times in 1 month, she's still considered one unique user. Okay, so that's a lot of traffic. And that increases about 52% over the last 3 years. NAR has told us that we are the number one stop for searching for real estate. That's probably not a surprise. Most people, when they hear Realtor.com, if they know about it, that's where you go to shop for real estate. What we are also the number one destination for is the consumer out there looking for an agent. That is not necessarily as well known. So remember that when we get into talking about our profiles. It's very, very important that you realize that about half of our traffic that comes to our site is a consumer out there who's searching for a realtor. Okay? All right. We have, and I have to fix that because it's gone up. We have an 83% brand awareness or a brand clarity. So if you were to run out on the street and talk to 100 strangers, 83 about of them would know of and have used Realtor.com in the past. And that increases about 25%, that brand awareness, every 5 years. A third of our visitors never visit the competition. Once they've arrived at Realtor.com and they are finding out whatever they need to find out, they're happy enough they don't go visit Zillow or Trulia or any of the other providers. Part of that whole website design just gave us a lot of better search criteria. We have historical photos for neighborhoods now that we've added. We have a new partnership with Yelp so that we also can provide neighborhood amenities. We have a commute time calculator, and also, in response to public request, we have the ability to search, as you can in your MLS, to search by school district. That was really important for consumers. That the mobile experience is also a result of the website redesign. Because of the HTML language, we no longer needed a separate version of the website. The HTML5 language simply redraws an existing website based upon the device that's accessing it. So you didn't have to have a separate version. In addition to which, none of the data is ever lost. It's simply rearranged. So if you're on a cell phone, the larger version becomes a more vertical version, but everything is still there. And because we have, I think the number is 58 coming up, 58% of our traffic comes from a smartphone. For a different product, there's another slide that talks about the number of people in the world that actually use a smartphone. And there's a prediction that by the year 2020, 80% of every human being on the planet will have a smartphone. Now, my guess, I'm pretty sure of this, is that that number, I'm sure, has already been exceeded in the United States. More than 80% have a smartphone, right? And a lot of people don't even have a laptop or a desktop anymore. They just simply have a smartphone that are almost as powerful, right, as a laptop. And so that's why so much traffic comes from a smartphone. That's why we really had to pay a lot of attention to that mobile consumer experience. We've totally redesigned our search result page. What I want you to pay attention to, and I want you to remember this image for about 3 or 4 minutes. Bigger pictures, simply better, more intuitively laid out information. By law, if you can see this here, we have to display the sponsoring brokerage, right? So I want you to remember that for another few slides ahead of us. Larger photos, agent names above photos. We have a very intuitive, what we think anyway, a contact information box. It used to be very complicated, where we asked for a lot of information. People weren't doing it. Focus groups finally led us to this very simple box. A lot more people are using it now because of that. That really is to your benefit when it comes to your listings, okay? And then here's our international website. Again, your listings are pushed out to it kind of depends on how things are working in the world, but between 70 to 72 different countries, okay? Now, let's talk about Advantage. And I want you to remember that screen I asked you to remember? In just a couple of, you'll see why in a couple of minutes. Every agent in the country has a Realtor.com account. Every agent. As long as you have a license that's active and belong to an MLS, every agent has an account. It's called the basic or essentials account. Just so that all of those listings, all of their listings can be ported over into Realtor.com. Because we have a feed from virtually every MLS in the country. Okay? Most of those agents don't even know they have an account. You guys, I like to call the elite group of agents in the country. You're between 10 and 12% of all agents across the United States that have this elevated version of that Realtor.com account called Advantage. It used to be called Advantage Pro, now it's simply Advantage. Okay? And there's a whole list now of benefits, and it's been provided to you also by Keller Williams. Okay? So, you remember that, right? So we're talking about right now here personal branding for your listings. So, what's the difference here? As an Advantage member or Advantage subscriber, this is not all. There's kind of two clicks to see the entire or all the information of a listing. Now your listing is branded with the brokerage logo. That's step number one. When somebody now clicks into the full profile of a property, not only do we have the brokerage logo, we have the listing branded with your face and your contact information, as long as you're the listing agent. Okay? Anything, of course, if they call you directly, that's a direct lead, right? Anybody who fills out that information box, that lead, that information, that contact information goes directly to you. That's also Keller Williams' policy, is that your listing lead belongs to you. Okay? So that's one of the many different benefits to an Advantage subscribership. We have now the ability to send a seller report. Now the basic agent also has this ability, but not anywhere near to this extent. What is one of the major complaints of home sellers about their listing agents?
No feedback.
And no matter where I am in the country, that's the answer we get. A lack of communication, right? No feedback. We often don't know what to even say. Here, what we can do is we can program, and it all depends on the property and the client and the conditions of the market, but you can determine how often a seller report will be sent to your client, which gives a whole bunch of information, right? Comparables, days on market, search result displays, etc. What's important are two different numbers. The number of times that listing has been viewed versus the number of times that someone actually took action on the listing, right? And it's at least an excuse to pick up the phone and call. And no matter how wonderful all your electronic tools are, does anything ever take the place of picking up the phone to call? Right? No, of course not. All the information is presented in a line bar format or in kind of Excel spreadsheet format. Okay? So that's one of the many benefits of an Advantage Pro subscribership.
Is it easy to go from line bar to that picture? You had two pictures up there. I use this all the time. Is it easy to go back? Because I only see the grid when you have the numbers going across. I didn't see the first slide.
So ask the question again.
I see this all the time. I don't see the one previous to that.
You don't ever see this?
I don't see that one.
Well, let's take a look at your account, though. Okay. Yeah. When we're done, let's take a look and see, because it's there. You have to know where to look.
Fine.
Yeah. Now, all of this information is sent to your seller, but it's copied to you also, right? So you can take a look at it. Often, what this can lead to, has anybody ever taken a listing here that you know has been slightly overpriced? You know, well, should I take the listing? And then you do, and it's overpriced. Sometimes this can be good ammunition for a heart-to-heart, right, with your seller. Look, this is just not working. Or let's share this information, or let's tweak it in some fashion, right, that'll hopefully get more activity. Because again, you take a look at the number of times it's been viewed. Yeah, somebody they've viewed this property 500 times, and I've had no phone calls or no contact, right? So you've got hard data then to have that kind of, perhaps what could be a difficult conversation. So again, let's talk about branding yourself. This was one of my favorite things as a managing broker, to talk about teaching people how to market themselves. Well, two different ways that we start out. Now the first first way, and when we're talking about branding yourself now, really getting yourself out there into the world is not so unique. It's not a unique idea to us, but we call it recommendations. Another word that you know is testimonials, right? So in your profile, you can have as many recommendations as you possibly can get. There's no limit to them. They can come from anywhere. They can come from anyone. All you new people, you're been barraged by third-party services. The lenders, the title companies, right? The inspection services. They want you to use them. So why not get a recommendation from them? Ask them for one. They can come from fellow agents. They can come from your mother. They can come from anywhere. They can be invited, requested through your dashboard, or more importantly, they can be copied and pasted from anywhere where they might already exist. Who's got a LinkedIn account? More than half of you do. There might be testimonials in there. Just copy and paste them. How many people have come to real estate from a different profession? Copy any testimonials that you might have had from there, from wherever it is you were out in the work world, right? They just need to be testaments to your character. That's all they need to be. Now, the second animal in our zoo here, if you will, which is a unique product for Realtor.com, is what we call our 5-star rating system. It's the only agent rating system approved by NAR, where your past clients will rate you 1 to 5 on a variety of different categories. And there's a few restrictions here now. They have to come from a past client. They must be associated with a closed property. And for those of you who've been using Realtor.com for a while, this is a slight change now in the structure of this, but we used to require that it had a closed MLS number. We lifted that requirement, which now allows you to put in new construction, which very often is not an MLS property, right? For sale by owner, right, which wasn't through MLS. Anything that you got paid for, right, you can also now include those. We have the field still there for an MLS number, and if it is, and most of them are, we encourage you to please use that, but you no longer have to have it. Now, the kicker is, though, again, we still have the requirement that it must be a past client, has to be a closed property, and here's the one big restriction. There's only one way to invite this rating. It's got to be done through your dashboard, which I'm going to show you here before we're finished. When they come back, when someone has actually done the rating for you, you do not have the option of filtering them out. So if it's not good, you're stuck with it. So those of you who've been, that's why I kind of asked in the beginning, who's more than 10 years, how many of us have had one or two or more clients from hell? Yeah, okay, right? So you don't have to ask every single client for a rating, right? If you did not have a good experience with somebody, you might not want to ask them for one, because if it comes back, you're stuck with it, right?
The problem that I had with Realtor.com versus Zillow as far as easiness of use, with Realtor.com, when we sent out reviews, they had to have an account in order to log in to leave a review. This was last year. So therefore, we would always send out something from Zillow because they didn't have to have an account. They could just fill it out and press send, and there it was. But Realtor.com wasn't as easy.
Well, it's still that they still do have to do that. But I know we've taken, I'll give you that. But at least it's easier now.
Right.
Now, it's important that you do it anyway, because that's one of the search criteria. It is the second most popular search criteria. And let me leave it at that, because I'm going to show you how that works in just a few minutes. Okay? All right. Speaking of Zillow, let me just point one thing out. Zillow has their own business model. I'm not going to even go there. What a lot of people like out in the consumer market about Realtor.com is that the data, the active listings, is absolutely accurate for one reason. It is strictly based on MLS feeds. So you cannot put your own listing in. If it is not an MLS listing, you cannot put it in. So if you're marketing a property that is, does Missouri law even allow this? You could market a listing and not actually have it on the MLS? It's because it varies from state to state.
If it's for sale by owner, I think that's the only way that works.
So let's call it a for sale by owner. You cannot put that, you cannot market it. It cannot be listed in Realtor.com because the only way to get it in there is through an MLS, right? What a lot of people do, and not only with Zillow, so I'm not going to pick on them, what a lot of people will do is they will manually input a listing, and then when it sells, they'll leave it as active because it generates more phone calls, right? The problem is the data is inaccurate. Somebody found their dream home. Oh, no, that was sold 3 months ago. That's at least the nature of our business model. Okay? All right.
In this ecosystem, nowadays it's very transparent where people can see your numbers, how many sales you have in the area, and your clients can tell your story through testimonials. So don't ignore your profile. First of all, now that Realtor.com has made their profiles much easier to fill out, go your profile. Go ahead, super easy, log in, add your picture, and then talk testimonials, because that has been a huge for us. Usually when you're investing in this type of an ecosystem, you end up with buyer leads. And when we started getting listing leads, we thought, why is that happening? What's going on? And we realized that sellers are using Realtor.com to research us as agents. They're using the data to tell if we're in the market and our experience level, and then they're reading our clients' stories about us and how they would recommend us, and they call us and they say, come with me. Don't ignore your profile.
So what's the last thing she said? Don't ignore your profiles. And just a few minutes before she said that, what was it that surprised her? What was it that they discovered, kind of by accident, and surprised them?
That there was,
No. It was cutting through, so we didn't hear much.
Oh, you heard this. This was before the. It was right before she said, "Don't ignore your
that
profile."
people were looking at their testimonials.
Yes, and they were getting what kind of leads? Seller leads, listing leads, right? We used Realtor.com to market our listings, but now we're getting seller leads, right? That's the focus of what I'm going to talk about this morning is your profile, okay? Now, do we all recognize that image on the right-hand side there? It's a Google search result page, right? We'd love to get you on the very, very, very top. However, that's usually a paid position. But play with me here now. This is just a silly little internet joke. The best place to hide a dead body is where?
Plain sight.
In plain sight is very good. Anybody know the answer? On page 3 of a search. Why? Nobody ever goes that far. And this applies to Google and any other search result page. Okay? Now, what we've discovered also from outside statistics is that Google is the number 2 destination for searching for an agent. Okay? So this is the second most popular place to go when you're looking for an agent. And 70% of agents that are found through the Google search engine are found through what we call an organic search. So, let me pick on those that have a name tag, but they're all hidden by the... Liliana. All right. So, let's say somebody from Arizona wants to move to this area. Okay? And so they go to Google and they put in you know, the kind of property. First of all, realtor, Springfield, Missouri, condominium, 3-bedroom, whatever, all their criteria. And somebody told them about this lady named Liliana. They don't know you, but they heard of you. So they put your name in this search. And then you do come up in the first couple of pages. Now, was that an organic search? Not really, because the name is there.
Oh,
It's
okay.
more of a direct name search. If you search for yourself and put the word realtor next to it, you'll be right on the top. Right? Now, somebody, however, puts in all of that information, but has never heard of you, but you come up in the first couple of pages of a Google search. Was that organic?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Liliana was found because she took the time to flush out her Realtor.com profile. Right? Now, the Realtor.com and Google are very connected. We are strategic business partners, and they index our site every 10 to 12 minutes. So what you put in your Realtor.com profile will reflect in Google within a quarter of an hour. Also, what's important is here I'm talking about our product, but whatever we talk about with regard to developing your online profile, you can use across the internet. Use it for your Zillow profile. Use it anywhere else that you develop an online profile. Use these concepts. But you were found because you took the time, and I want you all to hear this now, to spell out all of the specialties that you deal with in real estate. Now, so if I were to ask any one of you, what kind of real estate do you deal with, what would you say to me? Please don't say residential real estate. Right? Well, duh. Of course you do residential. Everybody does this. But what am I speaking of? I'm talking about the subspecialties now. Right? What are they? Seniors. Come on, give me the list.
Condominiums.
Condominiums.
Multifamily.
Multifamily.
Investors.
Investors. Second home properties. Horse ranches. Cattle ranches. Empty lots. Okay, you get the idea? You have when we get to that, you'll see you have 1,150 characters to fill up, and you should use every last one. If you've never sold a condominium, who cares? You can, right? You know how to do that. If you've never sold a cattle ranch, I'm not sure if you ought to do that without some help, right? But somebody here, I'm sure, can help you with it. Get the idea? Now, obviously, you're not going to go into commercial and don't talk about, strip malls, et cetera, if you don't know what you're doing there. But then this is strictly residential oriented. But you get the idea, right? The more you flush that out, the more your chances of being found.
So are you saying by updating our Realtor.com profile, when folks go on Google and search for whatever it might be, Realtor.com has indexed, as you said, every 12 seconds, and then they will find us?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a
Better chance.
Thank you. We can never use the word promise and guarantee, right? All we're trying to do is improve your chances of being found. Yeah.
And the more keywords you have that they're going to have in searches in your profile, the more chances.
And then the term keywords brings me to this. Everything you do in your profile, every word you add, every outside link you add, everything you do to flush out and enhance your profile becomes a searchable tag attached to your name in the Google search engine. So the longer your biography is, now again, there's limits to how much people will read, right? So you have to consider that too. But a lot of agents you'll see have a 2 or 3 sentence biography. Well, they're shortchanging themselves. Okay? Everything you do enhances, and I'll use a very technical term here now, enhances your amount of Google juice. Right? So again, I'm talking about Google juice. You're talking about your ability to be found, your searchability. Okay? Now, forget real estate just for a second. When you go out to make a major purchase of any kind, buying a car, new company to put a roof on your house, new washer and dryer, large expenditures. Do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
Even in print too, it doesn't have to be online, right? But you do research, right? 90% of those that spend a lot of money do so only after they have done the research. And 18% simply trust advertisement only, but that's a very small portion. Advertisement's not going away, it's critical, right? But after advertisement, we have the short list. And that's a result of research. Here's an example of that 5-star rating system I spoke of earlier. Your past client rates you on market expertise, your responsiveness, your negotiating skills, your professionalism, right? All of those various categories, and then our system gives you an average rating, an aggregate rating. This past client can also write a written, a paragraph, a testimonial, which you can then copy and paste into your recommendations section also. Okay? What's also very much recommended is that when somebody gives you a recommendation or a rating, that you, through the system, you respond to it and thank them for it. Because those who are doing research on you notice those things. And Google notices everything, right? They notice everything. By the way, for these, you can go back 10 years in your transaction history to get ratings. These can only come from whom?
Closed transactions.
Closed transactions, past clients, right? Whereas recommendations can come from anywhere. Here's an example of a recommendations page. Briefly, let's talk about what kind of leads now are we talking about. This is an example of a profile lead. Somebody lands on your profile, they like what they see, they make contact with you. That's called generates a lead, it's a profile lead. Now there are two other kinds of leads. One, we've already talked about those two, your listing leads, right? Those all come to you. There's a third one that's called a courtesy lead. Now remember I talked about those 90-some-odd% of other agents in the country that only have the essentials or the basic account? Well, they're also displaying their listings, right? Now, when somebody is interested in one of their properties and they fill out that contact box, does that lead go to the listing agent?
No.
No. Anybody have any idea where they go?
To the Advantage guys?
No, not directly. Not directly. Now, some of you may buy them because we have another product where we sell leads. They all go into a pool and we sell them under a different product. Now, it often happens that within a piece of a zip code that we've generated more leads than we've sold. Whenever that happens, we randomly distribute them to Advantage members. And when that happens, you'll get, the lead comes in and it's flagged as a courtesy lead. Okay? All right. Of course, it's distributed only to those that work in that particular geographical area. You have the ability to track the performance of your lead. And it's kind of similar to the seller's lead and the listing. It basically compares two different numbers, right? How many times your profile has been viewed versus the number of times somebody's actually taken an action on your profile. This particular example is for a 3-month period. The profile was viewed almost 1,000 times, but only acted upon 53 times. So what does that tell you about the profile?
It's not doing the right job.
Weak.
It's weak, not doing the right job. Exactly. Here's two examples side by side. Which one is better? one on the left. Why?
It has a picture.
It's got stuff in it.
Yeah,
So look, if you guys have never paid any attention to your profile, let me ask you this. I'm not going to ask you that direct question, but how many people actually maintain their profile on a kind of on a religious basis and are very happy with its performance? If you haven't paid much attention to your profile, it looks like that, or some version of that, right? And what really surprises me is that I'll go out searching for profiles where I'm in the areas I'm going to be, right? And I'll find agents that have done half the job. And then they've just forgotten about the rest. They've flushed out all the information, no biography, right? Or all the written information is there and no picture. I mean, how many people are willing, when we're done, to spend about an hour to either develop it from scratch or just tweak it, add some things, hopefully some tricks that you pick up here today, right? That might just net you, can't promise, but might net you 2 or 3 extra deals a year. Is it worth an hour?
Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe 5 to 10 minutes a month just to go back once a month and tweak whatever has changed? Yeah? Good. Okay. So, what I want you to do now, for the next little bit, here's where I'm going to talk about being bold. Remember I mentioned that earlier? I want you to kind of switch into consumer mode. You're not a client. You're searching for an agent in this area. You might be from this area and don't know anybody, or you might be from somewhere far away needing to come into this area. This is an example of somebody, or a profile that I show to everybody. This is a realtor friend of ours in Tempe. What is your knee-jerk reaction to this? Now, put yourself in the mindset of you're searching for an agent in the Arizona area, or the Phoenix area. What do you think of this profile? What does it tell you? How does it speak to you?
She's got great reviews. She's got 5-star reviews.
She has 5 of them, or 4 of them,
4 of them.
and 8 recommendations. What's the biggest component of this profile? The biggest piece of it? The thing that slaps you in the face the most?
The background picture.
The background picture. This is kind of typical of the Tempe area. We are in the desert. And this is kind of a typical shot of during the summer. We have 2 colors in the desert during the summer, brown and green, and most of the green is photoshopped in at this time of year. This is kind of typical of 115-degree heat, week after endless hot week. Might be kind of like similar to the winter here when the cold just seems to never stop, right? In any case, would you be interested in that kind of property? What are we trying to say here? These are people who don't know you. What does this first screen have to do? What job does it have to accomplish?
Catch your attention.
Beautiful. It's got to catch your attention. It's got to start making what?
Connection.
A connection. It's got to start making a connection. Okay? So, I'm going to give you a little short story here before we move on. So I started all those years ago, I started with Coldwell Banker back in Arizona all those years ago. We used to have to come to a sales meeting every week. You guys have to do that too?
Don't have to, but we have.
We get to.
We didn't really have to either, but we were very much shamed if we didn't show up. In any case, there was always a vendor there. You always had vendors, and they brought the coffee and the donuts, right? Now, because of RESPA violations, they don't even do that anymore, right? They can't even bring coffee because it might show favoritism. In any case, they used to bring the coffee and the donuts, and the vendor would get 5 or 10 minutes to push their product. This particular day, we walked in Monday morning, 9 o'clock, the whole front wall of the training room, of the sales room, was covered in a poster of Mount Everest. So I thought, okay, that's cool, right? We get close to the poster, and there's a little text on it. And it's an agent's name, and his contact information, and then his slogan. And his slogan was, I wanted to climb Mount Everest. I did. I want to sell your home. I can. Okay, we're trying to figure out what does this mean, right? What's the relevance here of Mount Everest and listing a home? Had no idea at the point. The vendor that day was a guy from a company called Hobbs Herder. Anybody heard of that company? They're a company, you've heard of it? They're based out of Las Vegas, and they're a marketing firm. They deal only with real estate professionals. And the guy was pushing his 3-day advertising conference in Las Vegas. So I bought it for $90 or whatever for 3 days in Las Vegas. I thought, okay, it's a quick trip from Phoenix to Vegas, so I did it. I did not buy his $15,000 marketing package because I thought I can do a lot of it myself. But what I saw in those 3 days changed the way I marketed for the remainder of my career. So other examples of marketing were somebody on their horse ranch. And they were displayed in their marketing photos, working with their horses. Somebody dealing with their prize roses that they grow. Somebody dealing with the Great Danes on their puppy farm. Somebody is a softball coach working with his kids, young high school kids. And his slogan was, every transaction is a home run. Something very cheesy like that, right? And the clients love the cheese. They just love it. Somebody knitting, somebody with their little cats, somebody with, so you get the idea, you get where I'm going with this, right? So they're now marketing what? What are they marketing?
Themselves.
What all these pictures, all these situations that are being presented to the consumer, they're presenting themselves. They're marketing themselves as human beings. They're marketing themselves with what they love to do outside of real estate. Most of you probably have some kind of hobby that you love. So I said to the guy up in Las Vegas, I've been a musician all my life, still am, and I said, God, I've spent so much time keeping the two apart. Because an artist simply can't be a good business person. Right? And vice versa, they don't fit. The guy said, well, that's stupid. I want you to be bold and think outside the box. And so my slogan changed to Michael McCall turning real estate into an art form. And my picture was me standing next to my piano. And hey, if you were a musician, you got it right away. But if you weren't, and if we happened to be in person, you saw my card, right? And you go, what's that? What does that mean? I don't know about you guys, but most realtors just need an excuse to start talking, right? And what happens when the connection is made? What has begun?
A relationship.
A relationship. A conversation. Would you not agree that once the conversation has begun and a relationship has begun, you're about 50% there already? Because what are we selling? Do you guys sell real estate? No. Real estate's just a commodity. That's what makes money. Right? But you're selling what? Yourself. I want you to think about this when we get into the discussion of what am I going to choose for that background photo. But before we go on, scrolling down, these are all of her listings and a map of where they lie. These are all of her 5-star ratings. These are all of her recommendations. Okay, so that's how a profile looks when it's completely filled out. Let's go now to a couple of local examples.
Oh, yes.
You know Michael Cataldo?
We know Michael, yes.
I want knee-jerk reactions now. I don't care if you like him or not, but just... What do you think?
It's a good profile picture.
His headshot's fine.
I don't like the picture behind him though, because it's blocked out.
So why is it blocked out like that?
It's the wrong ratio aspect.
It's not big enough. It's so simple, right? When we're in, I'll show you, it gives you the exact dimension that it has to be, and I'm going to show you how to find, in about 5 seconds, how to find a picture that's big enough. By the way, if you want to get bold and you want to show yourself, market yourself as the human being that you are, you might have to have that picture taken, right? But if you choose to use a real estate related photo, again, I'm going to show you how to do that, how to find royalty free and big enough, right? I'm going to show you how to do that. Yeah, it's just not big enough, right? And so that's what our system does. When it doesn't fit, it just fuzzes out the remaining space.
That's boring.
She's great though.
Sorry?
I said she's great.
She's great. In other words, she's a successful person.
She's a great agent.
She's a great agent. Okay. Well,
It does display her phone number right up in front, which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say that this is never going to work. But, and I say this, and I preface what I'm about to say, because I say it to every brokerage I'm in front of, not just Keller Williams, right? Keller Williams loves you, and you joined Keller, you love Keller Williams, right? Mm-hmm. You joined them for specific reasons. Of course you did, right? This is not in any way way, shape, or form meant to disparage any brokerage, but this is not the place for this. Does anybody care at this point who you work for? No. Most people don't. Now, there's exceptions, right? Most people don't care where your license is hung, what brokerage you work for. There's a time and place to really brag about that, but not here. This is a waste of, what kind of space is this? Remember we talked about this word? Right? This is the connection space here, right? It's not saying a word about her. She may be very successful, right? But anybody who's looking at the outside, looking at her from the outside, is probably not going to be horribly impressed with this. And the same goes for this here, right? Now, this might be a team picture. It might be his family. I have no way. Team Thomas over there. It's probably his team.
His team.
But it's so. And firstly, you can't see the background. You can't see the system text.
Too busy.
It's way too busy. You know Austin? Are you here?
Yep, he's here.
He's not in the room.
Not in the room, but yeah, his
So we
office
can
is just
talk
down the
about
hall.
So I never display a bad one for the group I'm going to be in front of. So why did I choose this one?
Well, it fills the space, it's clean.
Fills the space.
And it's bright.
Yeah.
It's bright. I very much like the subject matter.
I think he tells the story of the agent, what they sell.
Hello! Good for you. Yes. Okay? It says a lot about perhaps the kind of real estate he deals in. And his choice of kitchen is very smart. Because what two rooms most effectively sell a piece of real estate?
Kitchen and living room.
Kitchen and bath usually, but yeah, right, but kitchen. So kitchen, of course, I would not choose a bathroom unless it was, pretty spectacular, right? However, the kitchen, yeah, very good. Now this is one, this guy's from Chicago, but I'll show this to everybody too.
He likes himself.
This is I think it looks like he's taking a selfie.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it looks like he's he's working, he's associated with a mob. And this is, how do I put this bluntly? This is lazy and stupid and don't do it.
I think this is what mine looks like. Full disclosure.
Don't throw your headshot up as your background photo.
I kind of feel like I'm in trouble looking at that picture. I keep thinking it's a cop.
Yeah. The idea, and he short-changed himself here with a 2-sentence biography, right? Or 3 sentences. And there's just so little information there. I think we're getting to the end of it here. Sabrina, are you here? No. But she's in your office, right?
Yep.
Also very good. Okay?
Picture of Springfield.
Now, it's 95%. It's still not quite big enough. See this little bit here?
And a headshot too doesn't film.
Yeah, I mean, but it's good enough to where if she were here, I would say, you know, here's my suggestions. It's pretty good, right? The biography is nicely filled out. Most of everything is there. That's downtown Springfield, I guess, right? I'm assuming, right? Now, the only thing I would suggest here is that downtown Springfield, that same picture probably comes from the Chamber of Commerce or somewhere. There's another 1 million agents that use the same photo. So there's nothing unique about it. So if you see her, tell her I said so. But it's a good profile, right?
Oh, Anthony.
That's very interesting. See, it's downtown, but I just like it better. We have a history museum. It's got the picture itself has a little character to it, right?
Yeah.
And everything else is all very nicely.
Yeah, no ratings, reviews.
He's a brand new agent, yeah.
Is he brand new? Okay, so, but he's done a good job there. All right, now we're at the end. Now this is a picture I show to everybody. I want you to put yourself in my shoes. Why do I like this one so much? This is a perfect example of the connection that you want to make. Yes?
It's one of the few that I can actually read the text back here.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Well, all right, now that's a wonderful point, okay? So the system text, the name, agent, where he's from, etc., writer review, all those tabs, right? Those are all clickable tabs, is white, okay? That's the system text. We can't change it, I can't change it, it's the way it is. So you have to make sure that all that text is legible when you choose that background photo. That's a very good point. I usually mention that, and I forgot, so thank you. But why do I love this picture?
It takes the whole screen and it's kind of...
Yes.
Well, to me, why do you like it? But I'll tell you why I like it. Because it's warmer, it's more inviting, it's home, it's peaceful, it's an inviting picture.
Okay, I love it. All those things are wonderful, okay? Now, mind you, connections and what your initial gut reaction, that's going to vary from person to person. His is going to be different from yours, etc., right? They're all going to be different. Now, why do I love it as a consumer? All of those reasons, yes, but what is it saying to you? What do you see out the window?
Florida. He's selling Florida.
He's selling Florida. He's selling the ocean.
Yeah.
And now, if I'm not going to go to Florida, I already have the property I want, right? But when I retire, I'm going to live on the ocean in a condo where I walk out my back door and my toes are in the sand. That's what I want. So if I were shopping in Florida, I look at that, and for all the reasons that you've already shared, because it is warm and inviting, etc., all of those things are very valid, right? What is the the subconscious gut reaction in my head? Oh man, that's what I want. He might be able to find it for me. See what I'm saying? I look at something with a guy playing with his horses. That's what I want, because I love horses. I love softball. I love all those examples of all those things I told you about, right? So I want you to think along those lines. Please know that you're not ever stuck with anything. It's not quite right, change it. Right? You can change this thing as often as you want. Now there's a little button in your profile that says view your profile on Realtor.com. This is from your dashboard, right? So in other words, translated to English, what does that mean? Go out and check your profile and look at it the way the consumer sees it, right? So that things like this don't happen. What she did is she threw her headshot up. Now the headshot was of such a high resolution that it was big enough to fill the space. And if she were a dentist, it'd be great. Or
or a plastic surgeon who works on noses.
Oh, I've never heard that one before. That's really good. All right. Here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to get into a live profile, a live dashboard, I should say. And we're going to just kind of go over some of the things we've talked about and where they are. This is not the way you sign in. It's the way I have to sign in for a training account. I'll show you how you sign in, though. You probably already know. Okay. So here's your profile, or as an example of a profile. And again, this is a training account, so some of the data in there is pretty sparse. But there's just a couple of things I want to point out to you. A lot of this, and by the way, everything I talk about from this moment on for the next few minutes is in your Quick Start Guide. Okay? So in that guide that you have is, if you're brand new and you've never even set up your account, it's how to do it. And then I'm just pointing out a few things, all the things with the concepts that we've talked about. Here's where you implement them. But there's a couple of settings which are pretty important. Okay? First one is when you go to your settings page, there's a couple of switches you can turn off if you wish. The default setting is on. But the first one is, do you want open house information to come over from your MLS? I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't, you can turn it off. And then, I'm not sure how much foreclosure activity you have. It's pretty down across the country now, but if your MLS does display it and you want it to appear in your listing profiles, right, then you can turn that off. But it's defaulted to be on. But the really important kind of one to pay attention to is lead settings here. The first switch is, do you wish to be notified by text message when a new lead is generated? You might think, well, of course, and for now I would leave it on, but you'll see why you might come in here and turn this off later, because you also have a product called 5 Street, which we're going to talk about here before we're done, right? Okay. 5 Street also sends you alerts. Okay? And so the worst that can happen is you might be getting multiple duplicate alerts for the same lead. If that becomes a problem, come in here and turn this off. Okay? Now, I'm going to come down here to what to do with an Advantage Pro lead. That means a listing lead. And remember, there's in Realtor.com, there's the listing lead, the profile lead, and the courtesy lead. Okay? Each one of these has this little configuration box. And the only important field is the email address. Even those of you in the back, can you see what it says there? michael.mccall.realtor.com at 5street.me.
No.
Well, I just told you what's in it, right? It is a 5 Street email address, meaning that when a listing lead is generated from Realtor.com, not the alert, but the contact information, all the details of the lead are sent to 5 Street. And I want you to all check your account, because that needs, not mine obviously, but you have a unique 5street.me email address. That's what should be in that field. Otherwise, it would be your own email address. Okay? So keep that in mind. It'll be much more clear once we get to the 5 Street discussion here. Okay, I'm going to go to the Profile tab. And we're going to go to the Manage Profile. So there's that big background picture we were talking about. Mm-hmm. Just click on the picture, and you see now there's complete instructions here on how to upload a new one. You might not be able to see this in the back, but again, it needs to be a JPEG, and here's the minimum width and height. It tells you right there. Okay? And you simply upload the picture. You can crop it as you see fit, and then basically that becomes your profile picture, your background picture. Your headshot is done the same way. Headshot, just simply click on your headshot to change the photo. All right? And here in just a second, I'm going to show you how to find, again, as I told you, the right size picture. Now, there's information on the right side of this page, which hopefully most of you have already done. New people, you'll want to make sure you take care of this, right? Your MLS information must be correct, because if it's not, nothing works. It must be correct. Does anybody belong to more than one MLS in the room? If you ever join a second one, you have to call our support for them to add it in for you. Okay? Your NERDS number must be accurate. Your NARID number, right? Without it, nothing works. If it's not correct, or you don't, particularly if you're setting up a new account, you don't remember what it is, and I don't know an agent that knows their own NERDS number by heart, right? But you can go right to...
Ours is our login to the MLS, so every agent in here should have their NERDS number memorized.
Oh, there you go.
So just take off the SOMO dot, your 512 or whatever it is you're logging into.
Oh, okay, that's interesting, the way you set that up. Anyway, yeah, you have to add that in. Nothing works without it. Your brokerage contact information, you won't be able to change. That's set by your office. If you, anybody licensed in more than one state? If you can add that yourself there, okay, and I would, of course, add that in if you have a second license. Here's very important, blogs and social. If you participate in any real estate related blog, if you have a Facebook business page, and if you don't, I recommend you get one. It takes about 10 minutes to create one. It's free. If you have a Twitter business account, link them to your profile. What's that word I used, that very technical term? Google Juice. And I said everything you add to your profile increases your amount of Google Juice. This will triple that. Because it's an external link. You have one website driving traffic out to another. And on your Facebook page, you add your Realtor.com profile URL. And then the circle is complete. Right? Then you've got the destination point driving traffic back to the origin point. It's a full reciprocal circle. Google goes nuts over that. They love that kind of thing. Plus, of course, it gives your people who are searching for you more places to go research you. Okay? So those are very, very important page. Let's get back up here to the middle section here. I want to edit all of our contact information. I'm not going to deal with the first half of it. It's all clear. It's just your name and phone number, etc.
The contact email, just a quick question. If you had like Top Producer, eEdge, if you put in your CRM email there, will that forward those in for notifications, or do you recommend having just the
It doesn't matter here.
Okay.
It doesn't matter here.
That
you
one's
need a
not used.
contact email.
Yeah.
In your case, I would put your Keller Williams
Okay.
email address here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll start here. The year licensed. You put in the year and the month that you've got your real estate license, and then the system will display the number of years in business. If you're brand new and you don't want the public to see that you've had a license for a month, right? Then if you leave that field blank, it turns the switch off. It does not display your years of experience. Okay? So that's up to you. That's completely a personal decision. Now, the important ones I want to look at here are the specialties. That's where you have the 1,150 characters to spell out every last bit of real estate that you can do. Not that you have done in the past, but that you're comfortable in doing. Right? That's how people find you. Not just on Realtor.com or Google, but anywhere. If you have a Zillow profile, if you have a LinkedIn profile, I want you to talk about all of those things. Okay? Simply separated by a comma. Put them all in. Here's the geographical areas served. You put in zip codes. You can put in 51 zip codes before that maxes out. Okay? So that's, and then the system translates it into the cities that lie within those zip codes. So you probably don't want to use all 51. Depends how big your zip codes are. Right? So obviously, right, I'm going to think of like what's reasonable, code of ethics and all that stuff, right? Don't put in you know, somewhere that's too far away to service, but anywhere that you possibly can reasonably, you know, drive to with some comfort, right? Put in as many zip codes as you possibly can. Okay. Who has their own personal real estate website?
Everybody raise your hand, because you all did.
Well, beautiful. If it's not a Keller Williams page,
Yeah.
then that's where it goes, but that field should never be empty because you've all got a corporate page, right?
Everybody raise your hand, because you want to.
Right? So you've all got, if you don't have your own personal one, then you have a Keller Williams page,
Yeah,
right?
and that can be with your own personal URL.
Right.
Yes, and
Exactly,
we recommend
yes.
you get those.
Yeah, very good. Okay. And then there's your slogan, right? Turning real estate into an art form. People love the cheese. And then I skipped the video URL. If you don't have one of those, I really would recommend making one. Sit in a quiet place in your own little cubicle, and most of you have a camera on your laptop, and sit there and create a little video, 2 minutes, and talk about yourself. Oh, by the way, I'm a realtor. Right? And then throw it up on YouTube or Vimeo or some free little hosting spot, so it's completely free, and then put that link here. People love to see you talk about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to happen in a listing interview, right? You got to talk about yourself. Because people have to do what before they sign that listing agreement? What do people have to, you've got to arrive at a certain...
Trust you.
Trust you, thank you. We talked about conversation, we talked about relationship, we talked about rapport, we talked about connection. All those things lead to trust. And they're going to get this amazing idea of what kind of person you are just by listening to you speak a little bit. A lot of agents won't do that. They feel uncomfortable with it. I'm telling you, it's very effective. It's very, very effective. So go ahead and do that there. Here's the biography section. There's a limit to how big it is, and I have no idea. It's like 50 pages or something. So you never want to use the whole amount that you have there. But the biography should now be a continuation of whatever it is you wanted to say in your background picture. So again, your professional achievements, they're important. I worked for RE/MAX for, 13 years, and was 7 years in a row. I won the President's Award. Does anybody care? Not really, right? I made some money, and they liked it, and, my family was happy, blah, 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 but the client doesn't care. They don't even know what it means. Okay? Or your 15 different designations that you have next to your name, right? It needs to be a continuation of the concept of that background picture. And then talk about your professional achievements. In addition to this, the information you put in the specialty line, that specialty field, and your geographical areas, work those in to the body of your biography. For 2 reasons. Again, your client will note, or your prospect will notice this. Google also notices it when it sees duplication of information from one field to the next, giving you more Google juice. Okay? So work all that in. Last thing I'll say about biography, do not write it in that box. We don't give you a spell checker. So create it out in Word, make sure your grammar and your, all that stuff is correct, and then just simply copy and paste. At the bottom of this page, you have languages spoken and your designations. You cannot edit this info yourself. It's pulled directly from your NAR profile. So if it's missing or incorrect, go out, fix your NAR profile, and give it a half an hour or so, and it should reflect properly here. Okay? Recommendations under Manager Profile. Okay, here's where you can copy and paste recommendations in, or you can request them to be given to you. You can send an email out to one or more recipients asking for a recommendation. When they come back through the system, you will be alerted that there's a new one there, and do you wish to publish it? Right? Because you always have a choice with recommendations. Okay? The ratings and reviews. Here's where you add them, but they can only be added through invitation through the system. So you click on that, you fill out the contact information, right? And then if it comes back and you don't like it, what happens?
It's still
Doesn't
there.
matter, it's gonna be.
Doesn't matter. It's published to your profile. So you're going to always want to be very careful who you ask of these.
On the recommendations, do you send them out only by recommendations? You said, can we put in the recommendations?
Yeah, those are ones you can copy and paste existing ones in.
That we already have from our current clients? our
Yes.
past clients now. Okay, so only in the recommendations can we put those in?
Correct. It's the rating. You can't put those in yourself.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. All right. I'm on the listings tab here. This list will be pulled automatically, or the list is populated from your MLS. Okay? So whatever active listings you have, they'll be presented to you here in this form. If you click on any one of them now, it brings up the profile. Okay? You can change the background, or not the background, but the primary photo, right, of the listing. All of this info comes from MLS. So if, let's say, you put in 25 photos in your MLS, they'll all already be here. You have the option of adding up to 100 photos in your Realtor.com listing profile. Here's that send seller report. Brings up a little screen, it's very minimal, but it accomplishes a lot. Here we're going to add to the listing the seller contact information, which you cannot do in the MLS, right? Here you're going to attach it to the listing. If the client doesn't already exist, you'd in your client list here, you'd simply add them or choose an existing contact. Here's just a little boilerplate language of the email that is sent to your seller. You can change that as you see fit. You can write a whole big long message if you wish. And then here you program it or choose simply, is it a one-time send, every week, every 2 weeks, every month, every quarter? It's going to depend on your client, the kind of property, the conditions of the market. That's up to you to choose. Okay? So, all right. Again, down here now we can add, again, as I said, up to 100 photos. Because your listing, your MLS may have a restriction on the number of photos. Here you can add up to 100. The more photos, the better. People love to look at photos, and Google, again, sees that you've added more stuff. Open House tab. Your MLS also may have a restriction on the number of dates, open house dates that you can put in. Here, there's no limit. The description is kind of important. The description now is going to be pulled, and there isn't one here because it's dummy trained yet, right? The description is going to be pulled from the public remarks section of your MLS. Okay? Now, does your MLS allow something like this? For the most current information on this property, call Michael McCall at his telephone number. Does your MLS allow that in the public remarks?
No.
No. Not at all. Most don't. Okay? We don't have to follow MLS rules. So here in your listing profile here, you can add whatever you want as long as it's legal, right? You can add whatever you want. You can totally change it or you can simply add to it. It's all up to you.
And you can put your phone number in the description on Realtor.com.
Absolutely.
All right.
The links, remember how I said when we're looking at your personal profile, if you have a Facebook account, etc., it's so important to add those to your personal profile. The same is true for your listing. This also is going to increase its visibility if you have external links that you can attach to your listing. And like what would they be, for example? what do we usually do now for a nice property? We do
Drone photography.
drone photography, overhead drone videos. We do
Matterport
virtual
or-
tours, right? And with virtual tours, the company who produces them usually gives you two different versions, right? One is what? Branded and unbranded. And your MLS probably prohibits you attaching the branded version, correct? Here you can add the branded version. Why not? Push yourself as well as the listing. Okay? So again, all of that, just like your personal profile, is going to enhance the visibility and the Google juice, if you will, for the listing. Okay? So far so good? Alrighty. And I think that's all I want to say here about this. Okay. Let's move on. Let's wrap it up here with this. But let's just take a minute and breathe for a second. Does anybody have any questions on anything to do with what we talked about so far? Anything that somehow you... So far so good? The information has been valuable though?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good. So, with regard to 5 Street, now we're moving on to a different product. Okay? We're moving on to a product which then spans a whole different arena here. What have we been talking about with Realtor.com? What's been the end result of it?
Personal branding, creative leads.
To create leads. The personal branding, all of that leads to generating a lead. Right? Now, how many of you out there have other lead generating services? Yeah, right? And Keller Williams has their own. Some of you might have a Zillow account. Some of you might have Trulia or Redfin, or there's hundreds of lead providing services out there. Okay? Which reminds me, there's one thing I forgot to mention. I must have missed it when the slide went by. Most people like the Realtor.com lead better than other sources. And that's because there's only really one reason. Most of you have probably experienced this yourself. An ad will just pop up on Facebook or even just on your phone or anywhere, and it says something like, if you're curious about the value of your home, fill out this information and we'll give you, an instant valuation. Usually that's a Zestimate, right? And so they do, and they get their number, and they're happy. But what's happened to that information that's been gathered? It's been sold to many of you as a lead, and then you start calling this person, and they were just curious. That's all they wanted. And it was a tenant, for example, who just was curious about the value of the home they rent. Or it was a kid messing with their parents. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different reasons why these things. It's very rare that someone actually fills that box out because they're ready to sell. Now, there's only one difference between a Realtor.com lead. We obviously have to ask for that information too, right? The difference is, it's either your profile or your listing is they've landed on your profile and they want to talk to you. Or they've seen your property, your listings, and they're interested in the property. So when you call them, they have raised their hand and said, yes, I'm expecting someone to contact me. Yeah? So that's really the difference. But that makes a big difference because when you call, they're probably at some point in the near future ready to do some kind of business. It's not going to guarantee that it will absolutely happen, but your chances of success are better. Okay? Anyway, that's one of the lead generating services that we're talking about. But now we're kind of stepping back from Realtor.com, and we're talking about all the money and the resources and the effort that everybody really expends to generate leads from wherever they can get them. The problem we have is that in today's tech society, nobody has any patience anymore. Right? And if Kim... It is. You're coming back in text. No, I don't fall on your I need to pick on... What's your name?
Misty.
Right? How long will Misty wait? Now this is a national average, so it varies from place to place, but on a national average, how long will Misty wait for an answer before she moves on?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Well, that's just untenable. What happens when they come in at 3 o'clock in the morning? What happens when they come in during the day, more importantly, and you're with a client, or you're at the doctor's office, or you're in some situation where you can't immediately respond? Yeah? She goes on and she starts another one. In 2011, there were about 4.5 million real estate leads generated, and a few more than that homes sold. So those two numbers are pretty close together, right? But if we fast forward to July of this year, look at that. Look at that disparity. Look at the increase in the number of real estate leads. Now, that's not 88.5 million people, but it's about 10 to 15 million people like Misty who made one inquiry, waited on an average 5 minutes, didn't hear anything. She did it again and again and again and again and again until somebody finally answered or she gave up. So there's 10 to 15 million transactions that you're not getting. Right? Because what happens to all those leads? They just go nowhere. They go nowhere. We can take a look at this bar chart and see how your chances of contacting or qualifying a prospect, how drastically they reduce after the first 5 minutes. 48% of buyer inquiries were never responded to. Average response time was 15.5 hours, which is 15 hours too late, right?
Yeah.
And I'm being, of course, I'm being silly, but you can almost buy a house in 15.5 hours, right? 23% of leads are followed up in the first hour. That's 55 minutes too late. You follow up an hour later and, oh no, I've already gotten a call from somebody, right? So obviously this is what we want to do, is try to minimize these missed opportunities. We can't absolutely guarantee that you're going to capture every one of them, but the idea is to get more than you're getting now. So let's take a quick look at what the program does. So I talked about, of course, Realtor.com is what we started with today. That's one lead provider. And then we mentioned all the other ones. And there's so many that I don't even know how many there are out there. But over 150 leads, lead providers can all be funneled into one place. So the leads all can be viewed in one place. They can be tracked in one place, filtered and sorted in one place, exported to other newsletters in one place, all visible in one place. We have a guaranteed personal response time. So your prospect, Misty, for example, would have gotten a response within 5 minutes by email and by text. And again, national averages have told us that if Misty gets, and that's, personally I like to call it an acknowledgement. She gets a message that says, hey, I heard you, thank you. I'm just tied up at the moment, but I'll get back to you as soon as humanly possible. That she will allow a significantly greater amount of time for that agent to call her. I don't know exactly how much, but a lot more time. She will wait for a response. So that's why I like to call it an acknowledgement that, yes, I heard you, right? It's, your inquiry didn't go off into cyberspace somewhere, okay? Smart Leads is probably one of the coolest features of 5 Street. I think it's amazing. Now, we have to, obviously, you as agents, we have to alert you, right? That a new lead has been generated from wherever they came from. As before we send you the alert, we've gone out and we've scoured social media, and we have found out and gathered all the information about that prospect as we possibly can. Specifically Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Whatever that prospect has put out on their social platforms, we've gathered it all and presented it to you. We'll see an example of that here in just a second. So that can give you some pretty powerful, sometimes, some pretty powerful and useful background info before you make your initial contact. Broadcast routing, I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. It's mobile friendly. You will get into your dashboard once or twice for some pretty easy set it and forget it configuration. We'll go over that here in a second. And then your day-to-day activity is done on your smartphone. Okay? Tracking and real-time reporting, I've already spoken about that. If you happen to be a top producer user or a whole long list of other third-party providers, 5 Street can sync seamlessly with them so that the data is simply passed along, right, to all the various providers that you might use. So here's the animation which kind of demonstrates everything I said, right? Here's all the lead providers that you might or might not use. The leads are all getting dumped into the same funnel. 5 Street is doing its job, right? It's scouring social media, gathering all the information that is available on that prospect. The listing agent is sent the alert, and the consumer is sent that acknowledgement that we spoke about, right? Within 5 minutes, but we've purposely built in a minimum of a 2-minute delay, so that, anybody have any idea why?
I don't think it's a machine.
So it's not painfully obvious, right, that it's a computer-generated response. You wouldn't have had time to write that little message. Okay? So yeah, so that's why we built that in. Now, let me talk about 2 different categories of leads. Referred and direct. Now, I think in your case, the bulk of your leads are going to be direct.
They're all going to be direct, yeah.
However, just so that you know, meaning the leads come directly to you, they don't go anywhere else, right? But in case you ever have this need, let's say Misty, silly girl, wants to take a vacation. We don't do that in our business, vacation, right? What's that? My wife and I like to go to South America every year, and even though I'm not active in real estate anymore, she's a commercial agent. And, you know, we get there and we wake up in the morning and we do 2 hours of work. Doesn't matter where in the world as long as we have an internet connection, right? But let's say you want to go to Mount Everest or somewhere where you really can't get a connection. And it's going to be for a short period of time. And during that time, Misty chooses to refer all of her leads to Tracy and to Kim. And she sets up her own individual system where if Tracy doesn't respond in 10 minutes, then it goes to Kim, or some order that she chooses. And she can also decide that if a listing lead comes in that's worth over $500,000, I would like to have my vacation interrupted for that, right? And she can set her own set of parameters on where these leads don't get this, they come directly back to me. And then after 5 days or 2 weeks or however long it is, it's done, okay? That's a referred lead. If they go to Tracy or Kim, the lead is referred. And when they come in, they have partial lead information that's given, but yes, I want to take the lead, and they just click on the bottom link, and it takes you to the next step, which we'll see in a second. If it's a direct lead, again, in your case, most of them will be, right? Simply click on the bottom link, and then, this is the claiming process. Now, the referred lead, you have to hit the claim button, right? And then the direct lead, the next step, right, is what is my next action? Phone call, text, email. All will be done right from your smartphone. Here's a recap of the claiming process. Clicking on the first link, claiming it, coming over here to the verification page. You get a verification notice that the lead is now yours. It's not going to be distributed to anyone else. Okay? And then, like a direct lead, what is your next action?
Contact the customer.
Sorry?
Is it contact
Yeah,
the
exactly.
customer?
The method of contact.
Yes.
Right? The lead planning process can also be done through your email alerts. And please know that if you do one, you don't have to do the other. Right? You can, if you've already done your lead claiming via text, you can simply ignore the emails. One way or the other, whether they're referred or whether they're direct, this is your final set of information. So, full contact info, obviously, the source of the lead, the full message that the prospect wrote to you from whatever provider that the lead came from. If it was a referred lead, either the office or the agent that referred it to you. Here's all that smart lead information I talked about earlier, right? We've given you links, direct links to their accounts, assuming they exist, right? Either the LinkedIn, the Twitter, or the Facebook. And then all the information we were able to gather about that prospect. Realize, please, that that information will vary from prospect to prospect. It's whatever they put out, right, as social, on their social media platforms. Some people say, gee, isn't that stalking? Might be, but we're just gathering public information, right?
It's soft stuff.
Soft stalking, there you go. And then finally, whatever, all the information about the property that they inquired on, with a link to the public remarks and photos of the property. And by the way, back here, if there's pictures of the prospect, right, we'll give you links to those. So you see how that could be some pretty valuable info before you make that initial phone call, right? So let's talk about simple setups, kind of the last thing we're going to do today.
Can I ask a quick question
Yes.
about that lead distribution? If I am on vacation and Misty and Kim are handling my business and my lead goes to Misty and she doesn't claim it, so in 5 minutes and I've got it set up to roll to Kim, and Kim claims it, if it's 8 minutes later and Misty clicks on it, is it going to show Misty that Kim's already got it? Does it show so that she doesn't follow up with it also? Is it no longer valid or available?
It will show up as already been claimed.
Okay, good.
Not who claimed it, but whoever claimed it. Yes.
Okay, good.
How hard is it to link all that up where you have Facebook, you have Zillow, you have Truly, you have Roku.com? How do you get all these different funneling in there all synced up?
Excellent question. I'm about to get to that.
Simple setup.
Yeah, good question. Excellent question. Obviously, yeah. It's a one-time little setup for each of your providers. And we're going to see how that works here in just a second. Okay. This is, most of you probably have already seen this, but it's a welcome letter. If you're brand new, you might still have to do it, right? But you get a welcome email from 5 Street, and you basically need to go through a process of creating your permanent password. Because you're given your username, which is always your permanent email address. We start out with a temporary password, you create a permanent one, right? And then we go to the login screen here. 5street.com, log in on the top right. The first thing you have to do is confirm your phone number. Because if you don't, the system doesn't know where to send you text message alerts. That's very critical, right? So you click on that link, you send yourself a confirmation text, you respond with the word confirm, and we're ready to go. Now from here, it's much easier to kind of show you the rest of this live. So remember, top right is the login button. And then we log in with your email address and your permanent password.
And you can click reset your password if you don't have that initial email.
About to mention that. Very,
Sorry.
very good. No, don't be sorry. I like it when people know what they're talking about.
She knows
too.
everything.
She knows.
Not
Yeah.
everything.
If you somehow, again, if you forget your password, or if you haven't received, so sometimes these welcome emails go into your clutter or your junk, and they get deleted and you've never seen them, right? If you reset your password, the system sends you the welcome email again. Okay? That's how it works. In any case, we log in. there's a couple of housekeeping rules that I just want to kind of go over. Again, we've created these accounts for you, but you want, particularly new people, you want to verify that we haven't made typographical errors, that everything is kind of, exactly correct. So under the account tab, you click on My Profile. Make sure your name, email address is correct, your phone number. Make sure your MLS info is correct. Time zone is correct. And of course, if you've made any changes, you click the Save button. Also, now remember, all of this is in the book, so if you miss it, don't worry, it's there. Add-ons and integrations. Again, under the Account tab, we have a list of third-party services that you may or may not use. Here's where you configure them. Meaning that once 5 Street has received the lead info and done all of the things that it does, the alerts and the scouring of social media, it's done all that, then it passes the lead info on to whatever has been connected to it to do whatever job it's supposed to do. For example, Top Producer is a real estate CRM. So it passes the information on, and then the lead cultivation process begins. Okay? Finally here, notification settings. I kind of recommend that you don't change anything here, but what you have is the opportunity to turn on or off text message and or email alerts for various different categories of leads. The only reason I say you might not want to mess with this is just to make sure you never lose anything, right? But once you become very familiar with how it all works, then if you want to try, minimizing the number of text messages or emails that you get, that's fine. On the bottom of this page, you also have the opportunity to turn on or off text message alerts during certain times of the day, or completely on weekends. Okay? Again, I don't recommend doing that because the system does not catch up to text message alerts which would have been sent during the off period. The email alerts, of course, will always be there, but the text messages won't. The solution to not being bothered by a text message alert is to turn your phone sound off or your do not disturb function on, right? You don't want to be awakened in the middle of the night or disturbed during the day. That way, all of your text messages will always be there. And we tend to look at text messages now before we check emails. Okay? All right. Let's look at leads here. This is now your lead list. So as time goes on, this list is going to get longer and longer and longer, right? The whole list can be searched by name, by email, by the owner, the status, the source, and the date received. A new lead can be generated manually if you happen to have, just information jotted on a piece of paper, for example, or just a business card. You can add a lead in here yourself. And what happens then is the process begins, right? The acknowledgments are sent out. So it's not just capturing information. And then here's the whole list. You can click on anybody's name to bring up the whole profile of the lead, which is basically all of the info that was originally sent to you, in addition to whatever notes or comments you may have added along the way. And then also there's this status of a lead. Now we recommend that you keep that status current, so that first of all, when you look at the lead page, you see where everybody is. But it's also useful because the list can be sorted by status. And then, for example, all leads that are going to be in the future, just as a hypothetical, right? They can be gathered together, exported, and used in a particular newsletter, for example, right? And here's where you change the status, right here in the profile of the lead. The way, kind of a suggested way, every new lead comes in is flagged as new. When you make the initial contact, then it's engaged. When you're close to or in a transaction, the lead is active. If the business will be in the future, obviously future, right? When a transaction closes, closed, or what is the other one? Inactive. If it dies, or you can delete them, or you can flag them as inactive. Lead sources. This is a critical page. Now this is going to answer this gentleman's question right here. I'm going to start out right here in this middle section. You see where there's this funny email address that's at 5street.me? 5street creates a unique email address for each account that's at, it's usually your first name dot last name at 5. You'll never use this email address for anything else, but it is the contact point between 5 Street and any other lead provider. So let's say you've got 6 lead providers. You got Realtor.com, you got Zillow, you got Forum. Everywhere, or somewhere I should say, in the configuration settings of the lead provider, the lead generator, there's going to be a spot where it says, where do I send the lead information when one is generated? This is what you fill in there. That answers your question. It's a one-time configuration for each of your lead providers. Okay? That's critical. That has to be done. That's what facilitates all the leads falling into the funnel. Okay? On the very top here, you can, if you use Gmail,
Which all of your KW email addresses are Gmail based.
okay, you can connect your email account to 5 Street. It's an option. Some agents like it, some don't. It scans every one of your emails, and if it determines there's potential lead information in it, it will generate a lead. Once in a while you get false positives. There's also a 10 to 15 minute delay due to Gmail technology. So you can try it. If it does not working for you, disconnect it. What we do, however, recommend is this quick entry form right here. 5 Street generates a very unique URL which creates your own personal contact me box. So if someone fills this box out, what happens? A new lead is generated, right? Not only does it capture the information, but it starts that whole social media scouring process and the alerts, etc., right? Some agents use this even as an email signature. Some agents use it as a replacement to their contact me page on a website. Put it on a Facebook post. Put it on a Twitter post. Put it on LinkedIn. Put it anywhere where somebody might want to fill it out. One more wonderful usage of this. How about opening your smartphone, going to that URL, and then bookmarking it on your smartphone. And then whenever you're in church or you're in a networking event, wherever you're with people and might be having a conversation, where you might be exchanging business cards, and you'll say to them, gee, why not, would you take just a second here and fill this out? You can all see it? Right, and it's the same thing, it's on the screen, but it's on your smartphone.
Where'd you say this, where'd you put that link at?
Well, you have to get into your account, and you go to that, and so you open your browser in your smartphone, right, and then bookmark it.
Oh, okay.
Right, and then bookmark it. Okay? This has been wildly successful.
Can you change that new inquiry for, can you change that verbiage up there?
No.
Kind of like open house?
No, not yet, not yet. I'll bring that back to development, they might add that. So you see how that can be useful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, use that as your sign-in sheet.
You can still do it, open house sign-in sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, there we go on that one. And then, finally, I'm going to go to, there's Teams and forwarding here. I'm going to skip those. Remember that example that I talked about, Misty going on vacation. The reason I don't really do that is because there's so many different variables. Here's what you want to do though. Here's the simple solution to it. If you decide you want to do that, or any one of you, there's a support number on every other page. They're there for you to do this. You call them and I want to set up a temporary lead routing situation. Don't tell them I told you this, but if you're really nice and ask nicely, they'll do it for you. Right? That's what they're there for. They will do it for you. But other than that, the response page, these have been turned on for you. This is critical. I mean, this is half of the reason the product even exists. You want to make sure these are on. This is sending that acknowledgement by text and by email. Each one of these, however, can be customized. This is the email. You can customize the boilerplate text that we've given you. You can say whatever you want here. You can change the subject line of the email. What I would suggest, you have two suggestions. If you decide to change the boilerplate language we've given you, first of all, don't tie yourself down to a specific amount of time. Because if you can't, if you say, I'll get back to you in 30 minutes, then 31 minutes goes by, you're a liar, and they've moved on, right? And then secondly, and the most important, is always end the body of your email message or the text message with a question. What's the best time to reach you? Do you prefer mornings or evenings? Something like that. That's a proven marketing strategy. A question always encourages an answer, which then begins a conversation. Yes?
Can we add a signature?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
It can't be an image though, right?
No.
So it's just a text signature.
Just a text
Yes.
signature. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sarah's mind.
Sorry.
I know.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Finally, here as we wrap it up, this is your lead overview tab. This is nothing but a representation of your lead list in a bar chart format. Okay? So you can choose any time period and categorize by any of the lead criteria, and it displays the information in a bar chart format. Here's the real benefit of this page. The colors of the bars are related to the source of the lead. So basically, it can give you a good idea of your lead provider's performance for any given time period. So you can say, choose a 6-month period and say, wow, I've gotten 400 leads from here, but only 10 from over here. So you may decide to either tweak over here, reallocate your marketing dollars, but you see the point, right? It gives you a good idea of your return on investment. Okay? That is basically it. This number should be in your booklet, but it's a support number that you can call. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all I've got.
Thank you.
329.
So,
It went too fast.
it's on here.
Yeah.
Sarah,
There's the number there.
Oh,
is
899.
Hive Street still is that part of our contract with Realtor.com?
Yes, it is.
Or Color
Every new associate is signed up for a 5 Street account. They're added to our office account. You are sent that initial email within the first 24 hours of signing up for KW.
You have to know what the email is, right?
Yeah, but you may not even have your email address yet, but you still get signed up for it right away. So yeah, it's there.
Is it charge extra for Teams?
No.
Okay, so we've tried to set it up, and for some reason it keeps emailing the other agents saying that their credit card is being declined. So, curious. Or maybe I had it set up wrong.
As I say, there shouldn't be any extra fee for that, as far as I know.
There would not be. If there's an issue there, call Eric.
Okay.
Right, Eric
Yeah.
Uzo? Because he can handle that. He's the implementation manager
Okay.
for you guys. No, there shouldn't. No, there would not. There shouldn't.
And Lindy, I can take a look at that too and see if I see anything right off the bat with it.
Yeah. Anyway, did you find all this valuable?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
Right?
you.
Everybody has something new, even if you're an experienced user. Hopefully you you went away with some new little tidbits. And we're gonna spend about how long? Simon being here with me today, and it was a pleasure to be with you guys, and the best of luck to y'all.
Thank you.
All right.